Kumlen Ablat Gemara. Today's daf is Daf Tzadik Vav. We were learning all about Sanhedrin and his ultimate demise by none other than his two own children. So he didn't die like everyone else who died from the songs of the Malachim or the different opinions we had. He survived in the morning to witness Hashem's miracle, and then he was killed by his two surviving sons. And we also learned that Nebuchadnezzar survived and Nebuzradan survived, and we will soon find out who these two people are. So we're up to the Tzadik Vav Amud Aleph, and about 20 lines from the top of the page. Excuse me. We were just talking about the work of Malachim, how they caused Sanhedrin's army to be decimated. So we're going to talk about where Malachim also intervene on behalf of someone else. In fact, on behalf of Avraham Avinu, and it's from a cryptic pasuk that we had. The pasuk says, "Vayicholek aleim laila." It says in the pasuk that Avraham Avinu, his strategy was he divided a laila, which laila means at night. Who he and his servants vayakim, and he was able to strike the fork. It sounds like the verse says that he split up he and if Lila is a noun, it should have said that he and his armies and his servants split up when at night. And that was their strategy when it was dark. Under the cover of darkness, they were able to overcome the four kings. But it sounds like that Lila itself was part of the strategy. You're right. Lila is not night. Lila is the name of a malach. Oisei malach. That malach, that came and supported Avram, the name of the malach was Lila Shmoi. The name of the malach is actually Lila. And do we know that there's a malach called Lila, night? It says, Laila Omar, the night says, Hoide Gather. So we see that there is a malach that is called Lila. Now the obvious, what exactly is pshat is very interesting. We find that the Gemara Nida says there's a malach called Lila, and every child that is born, before it is born, they bring it to Hashem and they say, tell me, this child, is it going to be smart, dumb? What's going to be the future of this child? So Nimrod, when it was brought up before Hashem and the kings were brought before Hashem, they were told that they were going to be successful. How is it that Avraham Avinu was able to then win the war? So this very same malach, the very same malach that went ahead and said that these kings are going to win, this very same malach now was told, change the course of history around and make sure that Avram wins. So that's why they summoned this malach called Lila. That's the view of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha says, you're right, Lila is not just nighttime, but it's something else. It's talking about Sha'asa Imay Maisa Lila, behaved that the different planets and stars and constellations that are seen at night should change course. It says, it says there that from Shemayim, they came and they waged a war. They waged war in history. So we see that the stars and the constellations, they themselves were involved. Omar Eshlaki, it wasn't a malach, it was basically all these constellations. Omar, the stars that came to support. Omar Eshlaki, Tova de Nafcha mit the Bar Nafcha. I like better the word of the blacksmith than the word of the son of the blacksmith. Rabbi Yochanan was known as Rabbi Yochanan Bar Nafcha because his father was a blacksmith. And Rabbi Yitzchak was Nafcha, he himself. I mean, picture this image that the Amoraim themselves, they worked. And he was a blacksmith. He got his hands very dirty. And I like better what Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha says than what Rabbi Yochanan says. Okay, the pasuk says that Avram and his Avodi, they chased after the kings, and they chased them until done. What do you mean till done? Rabbi Yochanan says, "Kivin sheba tzaddik at done." When Avram Avinu came to Don, why didn't he pursue them past Don? Toshash koichai. He felt very weak. He realized, or he saw, he had a vision that his descendants are going to do Avodah Zarah and done. Because it says regarding Yerovam, when Yerovam broke away from the rest of the Eden, he didn't want the Eden to go to the Shalayim because he thought if they were Oila Regel 3 times a year, they might eventually decide to change and go back to join the rest of the Eden with Rechavam. So he placed 2 Avodah Zarahs on 2 places, and he put sentinels there to make sure that nobody passes across and nobody goes to that side of Eretz Yisrael. It says, one of the Avodah Zarah wasn't done. So when Avram saw that, he felt weak and he didn't pursue him any further. Va'af oisei Rosh, and also that Rosh loin is Gabel, and also that Rosh Nebuchadnezzar did not overwhelm the Eden. Achigila done. Where did he get his strength? He got his strength in Don. Shenema, because it says in Pasuk, Midon Nishma Nachrasusa. From Don they can hear the neighing of his horses. So, because the Don was where Avram became weak, and when Nebuchadnezzar garnered his strength. Omar Abzeda says, Afalgav the Sholach Rabbi Yehuda Tzivin Tzivin. Even Rabbi Yehuda ben Seira from the Tzivin. The other say was Rabbi Shmuel Levi. He said three things. Even though he said three things, he zaru bezaken. If you see an older person who unfortunately forgot most of his learning, nevertheless, if he forgot his learning, machmas oins, it's not his fault. Old age, and maybe some senility settled in. You should be careful and treat him with respect. Why? Because in as he said there, that in the Aron you had the full luchas, but you also had the broken luchas. So you have to respect him for the past. It's not his fault. Number one. Excuse me. Number two, Hizaru bevaridin. You should be careful with the veins like Rabbi Yehuda. We know that you have to shech by a bird. You have to shech the esophagus, the trachea. He says there are also some arteries there that are full of blood. And if you're gonna, and you generally when a bird, because it's so small, you cook the entire bird in one go. And if you roast it in one go, there's a lot of blood there. So therefore, he says sever these arteries before you go ahead and you cook it. Now this in halach is a big machlekes, but this is the halacha not, or whether it's merely a chumrah, and we don't hold it at all. And the third thing he says was hizaru b'bnei ha'aretz shemehen tetzei Torah. You should be careful with the honor, respect of the children of Amaratzim, because from them the Torah will continue and flourish. Why? Because we're going to learn soon that Shemaiah, the Avtalion, was descendants from Sanhedrin, from this very Sanhedrin that we're learning about till now. Shemaiah and Avtalion, the two leaders of the Eden, were his descendants. The Be'er Sheva and other Mefarshim have a hard time understanding why would you think if the children of Tamil Chachamim, why would you think that you shouldn't give them derech eretz? In fact, the way Mashal is the whole Gemara here, the Mashal says we're talking to the Amaratzim themselves. You should have a little respect for Amaratzim because you never know their children might grow up to be Tamil Chachamim. In fact, we had the Gemara Nadarim, and the Gemara says that why is it that the children of Tamil Chachamim are not Tamil Chachamim? You have so many rabbis, the children are not rabbis. And he says it to teach us that Torah is not an inheritance, that there's some kind of a dynasty and only they are it's an exclusive club. There's no exclusive club. Anybody wants can come and take the luchas. So he said here, so these children of Amaratzim, he said, even though he said all of these things, nevertheless, the following you should tell them. And Rashi gives two opposite pshatim. What do you mean? What should you tell the children of Amaratzim? One pshat is you tell them that look, the Nebuchadnezzar, as we'll see in the Gemara later, we already mentioned before, why was he able to be so successful? Because when he heard how Hashem was being disrespected, he walked 4 steps to retrieve a letter, which we're going to learn about soon in the story. And so therefore, we tell every child of Amoritz, don't think that that all the credit is due to you. You should know there's some good in your parents as well, and to have and that's how it had a chus to have you as a son. So you should know, you should be proud of your yichus. There's something good about them. That's the first Shar Rashi. And the other Shar Rashi is exactly the opposite. That that even though that Sancherib had great-great-grandchildren, you should know that you have no yichus. And the only reason why you give you covered is because of yourself. And in order that you shouldn't walk around saying, oh, I have great ancestry. No, you don't. Your ancestors were bad, and tell them not call a spade a spade. It's all in your schus. Again, it's difficult over here because the story of the first time Rashi, Nebuchadnezzar walked 4 steps. He did the right thing. So why? What's have to do with that because the person did the right thing, his children will be good? Where do we have a precedent for that? Anyway, the Mashal again is talking about we're telling the Amoritz himself. Make sure that you try to raise good kids. Doesn't matter who you are. Try to raise good kids and so on. So the Gemara continues. Tzaddik Hashem, we say you are a tzaddik, that you're always justified, but I still want to argue with you. But what do you mean? I have something to argue with you. I have something to say to you. And my question is, Madua derech Rishayim Shleicha. Yimi wants to know from Hashem, why is it that you find so many Rishayim and they're so successful? The tat gam shoshe. These people who have betrayed you, they plant and they take root. Yelchu gam masapri, and they have even fruits. No, they're very successful, and they're terrible people. Maya hadule. So what did Hashem answer him? He said to him, Kies raglayim. What did Hashem answer the Yirmiyahu? Kies raglayim rasta vayilucha. That you ran, and you got tired. The eight tischade as tasusim. How do you expect to outrun the horses? What does that have to do with anything? We'll see in a minute. And even on flat land, you are so confident. How are you going to be when it comes to a place that's, let's say, marshes, that is much harder to run, or near the water? And there's water there and everything else. What's going on here? What's he trying to say here? The guy is bragging. I could run 3 parsois, 12 kilometers, quicker than the horses. And I can go further. I can run through the marshes where your foot sinks in the ground, which is much more difficult. I can outrun anybody. Okay, what happened is so it happened to be that he was running and he saw this guy running, jogging, whatever it is, so he decided to outrun that person. Forget about horses, to outrun that person. And what happened was he only ran 3 kilometers, 3 mil, vanilla, and he was exhausted. He said, they said to this person, for another person. What could happen just 3 meal already? You're exhausted. Try to outrun the horses, you don't even have a chance. And this is only 3 meal, and we can do it. You expect to do 12 mil. A pass is 4 mil. You think you could outrun horses 12 mil? And if in the dry land is this way, is when it comes to marshes, is alachas kama kama. Surely there's no way in the world that you'll be able to outrun them. So what's the point? So to you. So he says, are you worried? Let me just tell you something. He says, what happened to Nebuchadnezzar? Why did Nebuchadnezzar succeed in destroying the Yisrael and all that? He said to him, only 4 steps that I rewarded Nebuchadnezzar, and he ran in my direction in order to give me honor. And you're wondering, imagine what I'm going to pay to Rosh Yaakov. They didn't just take 4 steps in my direction. They ran before me steadily, like horses, always. Surely, just imagine what kind of reward I will give them. It says, that to the Nevi'im, Nishbar Libi Bekibi. My heart broke inside me just trying to imagine the reward that they would have. Then I got my body tremble, my bones tremble. I was like a drunkard. I couldn't even walk a straight line. And like a person who drank wine. All the words and the promises that Hashem said that He will give to them. What's going on there? What's the story about Nebuchadnezzar taking 4 steps? Says the Gemara. What's the story of the 4 steps? It says, at that time, there was a king called Meroy Baladon, the Ben Baladon. So he had the exact same name like his father. He sent a letter. What's going on here? He sent a letter to Chizkiah HaMelech. Why in the world would he send a letter to Chizkiah HaMelech? The Gemara asked, because Chizkiah got sick and then he got well. Chizkiah became very sick, and then the Eibishter made Shaya go meet Chizkiah, and Shaya's daughter ended up marrying Chizkiah's son, and Menashe, and Chizkiah didn't want to marry him, didn't want to marry Shaya's daughter, because he saw that he'll have a son called Menashe who will be a terrible Russia. And Yishai said to him, "How to get him along? None of your business." And Chizkiah promised to marry. He recuperated, and he lived for another 15 years. So fine. So Chizkiah got better. Why in the world would he send a letter to Merodach Balad and send a letter to Chizkiah? What connection do they have? He sent him a letter and a present. What happened was, what happened was, he saw this miracle, and he wanted to explore what in the world happened. The day that Achaz, Chizkiah's father was Achaz, who's also a very big Russian. If you remember, what Chizkiah did was when um, Achaz died, Chizkiah then tied him to the back of the horses and he dragged him across to humiliate him, also maybe be a little kapara. So that day that Chizkiah died, they cut the day down, let's say from 12 hours down to 2 hours, lost 10 hours of sunlight. And why? So Rashi says, in order, there shouldn't be enough time to give him a eulogy and bury him. In other words, there was no eulogy at all. There was no eulogy at all. Just to bury him. But also, Chizkiah then went and dragged him on the ground. So it sounds like Chizkiah only dragged him for a very short time. It was more symbolic than he actually did it, because it was only 2 hours in the day. So, and he had to bury him as well. When Chizkiah got cured, and he was healed, what happened was, when Chizkiah then recovered, Hashem gave him back the 10 hours that was taken away. So now there's a very long 22 hours in that day there was sunlight. And we know from the Torah that by Hashem that the sun is actually very therapeutical. So therefore, the 10 hours came back. The Chassidus said, I'm going to return all of these steps. That was the sun. The 10 hours that was lost, the 10 hours in times of Achaz, and the sun then went another 10 hours, the Milas and to make up for the 10 hours I got lost. So he said, my hi, what's going on? Interesting that the Maral Prague in his Akdama to the Sefer Gvuras Hashem as a whole Chakira. This sun that went an extra 10 hours for Chizkiah, was it only for Chizkiah, or the whole world benefited from those 10 hours? You have all these astronomers who try to make calculations about certain events in this world, and they say that these 10 hours have some kind of a bearing on this whole thing. And also, when the sun stood still by Yeshua, it had a bearing on some of the carbon dating and other things. So, interesting why you have a Chakira, because right here it seems that Baladon knew about it. My high, what's going on here? Why is the sun 22-hour day? We've never had a 22-hour day. Chizkiah was sick and he got better. Omar, he said, he's such a righteous person. So we have to make some kind of ties with him, diplomatic ties. Let's send him a present. So they sent him the following letter, epistle. Shalom lemalka Chizkiah, shalom to King Chizkiah, shalom lekaddish Shalayim, peace to the city of Shalayim, shalom lekorabah, peace to the great God who made this miracle. Nebuchadnezzar. I told you yesterday, I don't know why every time Nebuchadnezzar says, we split the name in two parts. Nebuchadnezzar Safre di Baladon Haba. Nebuchadnezzar was this chief scribe of this king Baladon. He shaitul Haba, for whatever reason he wasn't there. Kiyasa, remember in those days a scribe was not just a scribe. Most people couldn't read and write. So therefore, it's very vital to his role. Amalu, he said to them, hey, he asked them, you wrote a letter to Chizkiah, tell me exactly the order that you wrote. They told him, because he's right. Amalu, when he told him that, he said, Karitu lelakorabah. On the one hand, you call him the great God, and then Kasitu lelasoif, you put him last. He said, so this is how you should write. Shalom lelakorabah, peace to the great God. Shalom lekaddish Shalayim, peace to the city of Shalayim. And Shalom lemalka Chizkiah, peace to the Chizkiah. It seems that even the city of Shalayim is more significant than King Chizkiah HaMelech. Even though we learned before that Chizkiah HaMelech was wrote to be Mashiach, other than the fact that he didn't praise Hashem. Amrilei, so they said to him, Karyana di Igarta, not just the reader of the letter, but the Mashal says the chief reader of the letter, you should be the Shliach, you go ahead and do it. Rad Basei chased after this messenger, when he ran 4 steps, Gabriel came and stopped him. It seems a number of times Gabriel, even though he was a malach of fire, he was considered gevura, tough, but he was the one who saved the Eden a number of times, and he lessened the tsar that the Eden had, including the fact that he held on to the coal that was supposed to destroy Yerushalayim so that it cooled down a bit. Also, Gabriel Ukmi held him back. Gabriel, had it not been for the fact that he came along and he stopped Nebuchadnezzar from continuing to run, the entire Jewish population of Achman would have been decimated. Fascinating. In the Zohar, it says that he only took 3 steps. Seems to be a machlekes. The Al Gemara says it took 4 steps. The Zohar says it took 3 steps. It says in the Gemara, Megillah Rabbi Yochanan said that when Vashti was called out to We spoke about this in the shir and in our Chodesh. I'll just quickly say it again for the benefit of those of the shir. When Vashti was told to come out, Rabbi Yechon says that Malach Gabriel came and put a tail on there. What do you mean put a tail on there? And what's the argument of Zohar and the Gemara? There's no argument. He took 3 full steps, and the last step he only took a half a step. So the Zohar counted as 3 because it's about the full steps, and then they counted us, and our Gemara counted as 4 because it took another half a step. By curtailing that 4th step, by stopping that 4th step in midway, so you had 3 generations, and then the 4th generation, which was Vashti, descended from Nebuchadnezzar, she was cut short in the middle of her life. And that's what he means, the tail. This is the end of the story of Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Nebuchadnezzar himself, it seems from our Gemara here, was not royal family. That was not a descendant from royal family. In fact, Achashverosh was a stable horse manager. The same thing over here. He was merely a cipher. In other places, it said that he came from a royal dynasty. But our Gemara seems to say he wasn't. Studying about it further, my Beladen, how can he have the same name as his father? Interesting, the Sfardim have a custom that the children actually have the same name as the father. But in Ashkenazim, we do not call it after someone who's still alive, a father or grandfather still alive. And our Gemara seems to wonder, why is Baladon called Ben Baladon, as if to say it was uncommon even then for someone alive, to be named, that his son should be named after him while he was still alive. Interesting. Amri Baladon, what happened was Baladon, the father of Merodach, was a Malchus king. And he was punished, and his face was so deformed, the Kalba looked like a dog. And it was embarrassing. He couldn't go show his face in public. He could no longer rule. His son, took over. But he had enough respect for his father so that he didn't want to say that I usurped my father's authority. So he still referred to himself as his father's name, as if his father was still the king through him. He called himself Balaam the king. It says Ben Yechaber that a son honors his father, Eved Adoinov, and a servant honors his master. Ben Yechaber Hadam. So a son serves his father, like we just said. The Eved Adoinov, and where do you see that a servant follows his master? And before we learn further, Rabbi Yaakov Emden writes, it comes out from this Gemara that Nebuchadnezzar lived at least 150 years old, 150 years, because he was part of the story of Sanhedrin. And he was a part of the army, so he had to be at least 20 years old. He was part of the army there, and he was a survivor. And this is many years later. Chizkiah lived another 50 years, Menashe lived 53 years, and so on and so forth, till the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, and worked out that he had to live at least 150 years. Quite amazing. Others want to say there were 2 Nebuchadnezzars, but from our Gemara it seems it's all the same person. Anyway. So what's the story about an Eved who's subservient to his master and so loyal? The Chsibet says, in the 5th month, the 5th month, Tavis, Hishnas Chayes on the Melech Nebuchadnezzar, sorry, this is the 5th month. This is Av, and this is the month of Av when he actually burnt, not when he surrounded the walls, which is Tavis. This is when he came and they burnt the Beis Hamikdash. The bulk of the burning was on the 10th day of Av, as we know that the Beis Hamikdash, the fire only started on the 9th day and towards the very end of the day, and then the 10th day burnt. Which is remarkable that Tisha B'Av, we basically, the first half of the day, we are very, very seriously, fasting and all these other laws. The second half of the day, we're much lighter. We put on tefillin, we sit on a normal bench, when in fact the fire hasn't even started till the end of the second half of the day. Anyway, Bon Nevuzradon, this is the other survivor that we learned before, Nevuzradon. He was a chief butcher. He was the executioner. He stood before the king of Babel in Yerushalayim, as if Nebuchadnezzar was in Yerushalayim. He destroyed the house of Hashem and he destroyed the house of the Eibishter. It says the Gemara, Umi Solek Nebuchadnezzar Yerushalayim. When was Nebuchadnezzar Yerushalayim? It said, Vayalu Oisei Melech Babel, that they brought him up to the king of Babel. They brought Tzidkiyahu. They dragged him to the king of Babel, Rivlasa, and Rivlasa was in Chutzlar, not part of Israel, which means Nebuchadnezzar was not in Israel. So what do you mean that Nevuzradon stood before Nebuchadnezzar? Zu Antuchia, that this region is called Antuchia, which is not Israel Yishlaim at all. One says the Mus the Yoiknoi, he had an image of etched out on his chariot of the picture of he always had a picture of Nebuchadnezzar with him. He had it etched out on his chariot, so he always stood there and he reminded himself that he is here to serve loyally his king. That's what he means in front of Nebuchadnezzar. That there was no image. He didn't need an image. In his mind, he had such fear and awe for his master, Nebuchadnezzar. It's just like the king in front of him. And this is how every Yid should be with a Rebbe. Every Yid should be, with the Eibush. Oh, it's the Shavise Hashem lenegdi summit. That Hashem should always be like in front of you. In fact, there was once I forgot the name, a big Rosh Yeshiva, a big Rav. His student left him and went to another tzaddik. So one day he met, and the Rav said to him, "Why did you leave me? You're such a good student. Why did you go to visit that tzaddik?" He said, "What does the tzaddik teach you that I never taught you?" He says, "Oh, that tzaddik. He teaches me." This is actually, he went to the Alter Rebbe, and he left his Rosh Yeshiva. He said, "What did your Alter Rebbe teach you that I never taught you?" So his Alter Rebbe taught me how to read people's minds. I said, "Yeah. What am I thinking about right now?" So he said, "You're thinking about the pasuk Shivise Hashem lenegdi summit. I always have Hashem right in front of my eyes." So the Rosh Yeshiva said, "Not true. I wasn't thinking that at all." So the Talmud said, "That's exactly why I left you." So the Gemara says, "Here you can learn lahavdul from Elif Abdolim, Elif Alafim, from Abdollah. You learn from Nuvus Radin." Said the Gemara, Omar Rava. Rava says, Toyin, he carried with him Tlas Mea Kudnaisa, 300 mules of Narga de Parzel, these metal pieces, the Shalad de Parzel, such metal axes that can break metal. In other words, they were so sharp that they can break metals. Shadal Nebuchadnezzar was Adon Kula Balasona, so Nebuchadnezzar sent was Adon, he sent to him, they should go ahead and destroy Yerushalayim. What happened was, Kula Balasina Chadosh Line, they tried to knock down even just one wall of Yerushalayim, and every one of these axes broke. It says, Petucha, the opening, Yachad Bekashir Chalipaz Alayman, that all the axes that they used, they all tried one opening and didn't work. He gave up. Nubuzad wanted to go back home. Mr. Finn, I'm worried. You shouldn't do to me with this because remember, Nubuzad was one of the survivors. So this is how bad Nebuchadnezzar was. They saw what happened with Sanhedrin. They remember what happened was because they were there. They were the survivors, and yet they were prepared to do it again. Anyway, he got scared and and he saw that it's not working, and he thought maybe I better go home. Is Nafka Kola, suddenly a Baskel came out, but Omar and said, Shavar Bashavar, you jumper the son of you leaper the son of a leaper. Nebuzradon Shavar, that in Nebuzradon it says over there that you should jump. Why? Because you'll be able to conquer Shalim. The Motazimna, the time came. The Mikdash Charim should be destroyed. The Heichal Miklim, my Heichal should be burnt. It's time. So you can go ahead, you'll succeed. And interesting, we find the expression here, the Margitin also by Zchaim Rav Kulas, that Migdash is destroyed in the Heichel. So it's Migdash and Heichel the same thing. Migdash sounds like it's is the Kedusha in it. That's the Shechina, the Ruchnius, that Hashem sort of left the base of Migdash, and the Heichel Mikla, and the Heichel the base of was destroyed. Pashta Chad Naga, he was left behind one axe. Ossi went ahead, he only had one axe left, and Hashem told him, go ahead and bang, and you'll succeed. Osya Micha Bekupri decided he's not going to bang with the sharp side. He banged with the flat side of the blade, or with a handle, with others. V'yiftich, and the wall suddenly just opened up. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, Yivoda Kimevi Lamoila Besvach Eight Kedumas. There's no like was given from above that Besvach Eight Kedumas, that he just with the thick part of the kardumas of the axe, he was able to destroy the wall of Shalim. Now he was a butcher. Having kotel va'azul, wherever he went, he killed people. Adam until he came to the base of Migdash. He lit there. He lit there a fire. Ali Benuda Gava Heichola, and suddenly the Heichol got wanted to run away. So somehow another base of Migdash lifted itself up and wanted to go back to Shemaim. They pushed him back down from heaven, and it says, "No, it's time for the base of Migdash to be destroyed." Shneimar, it says, "Gas Dorach Hashem," that Hashem pushed it down just like by a vat, pushed him down. Lepsulas Bas Yehuda, to the Psulas Bas, you go back. Kazicha Daita. So now so then he started feeling what do you call it? There was Radon, and the Nebuchadnezzar started feeling great that they were succeeding. And Nebuchadnezzar was not there, so Luchedus was Radon. And he started feeling, I guess, overconfident that the Eibishter wants him to destroy the whole thing. is what Navka Baskal Bakal came out. I'm it's a big deal. You killed a nation that was dead already. There were dead people walking because I already decreed that they should all die. You burnt a burnt building. You ground flour. What's the big deal of grinding flour? In other words, I already destroyed it, and once Hashem does something, ain't as if it already happened. You just were my axe. You didn't do anything. Don't take any credit for it. Shenemar says, take a mill, v'tachni, and go ahead and grind. Kamach, grind what? Flour. Gali tzamosach chesh b'shoivo. He says over here, go ahead and open the braids. First of all, hit the temples, the side of the head, and then Galit hit and chashve shubal, and open up the braids, which are like stalks of wheat, and Gale Shoik, and open up the thighs, reveal the thighs, and Naharas Chitim. Sorry, Avin Naharas, and you'll cross the Naharas. Chitim doesn't say you'll grind wheat, Ela Kemach, only flour. Only flour. Now, really, this passage was said to the Yidden that this is what the punishment you're going to get. However, now we're saying it. The Algamar is saying it to Nuzad. Don't be so don't be so filled with hubris. I did all this. Chaza, he saw in the base of Migdash the Med Chaya. He saw the blood of Chaya Navi that was killed many years earlier. That the people there couldn't take any more his all of his admonishments, and they killed him. That the blood was still boiling, was still seething. Amalu, my high, what's this? They were embarrassed to tell him what happened. They said, "Oh, this is that. It must be the blood of some carbonis." The stopper that spilled out. Amalu, yeah. I see. Let me go test it out. Imedamu kasi. So let's see, Taka, if that is what it is. Imidmu, if it's from the blood from the animals, like you say it is. So what happened was Kasi, he shechted a bunch of animals, and he had the blood cover the blood that was seething there. Didn't get quiet, didn't pacify it at all. Either you reveal to me where this blood comes from. If not, I'm going to start using metal combs and ripping his skin apart. They finally had to reveal to him the truth. This is Chaya, who was a Kohen and a Navi. The Nabalu Yisrael, he already was giving prophecy to Yidden about the Churban Shalayim. The Katlu, and the people couldn't take it anymore, and they killed him. Amuli said, "Okay, I'm not Mefayasa. Watch this. I'm going to get the blood to stop seething." I see Rabbanon. He took the most influential and eminent people amongst the Eden, all the rabbis, cut the lie, killed them all on top of this blood. The blood didn't stop. I see Dadik Rabbi brought the next group. The next group are children in yeshiva. Cut the lie, killed them on this blood. It didn't stop. I see Prichakuna. Then he brought the young Kohanim who were being groomed to be Kohanim. Cut the lie, killed it, and he shot them on the blood. Didn't stop. Adi Kotlai Tishin Va'arba Ribi, he killed 940,000. Again, like we said last time, that sometimes these numbers are just a bit of hyperbole to give you an idea of the enormity of the tragedy that occurred then. And the blood didn't stop boiling away. So he was rather than approached the blood, and Amar, he spoke to the blood. I already killed out the best of the Jews. Are you going to be only satisfied? You want me to kill every single Jew that lives in the world? The blood stopped. You hear this? This Nebuzaradan, after what he did, that butcher, he suddenly felt pangs of regret. Amar, he said, look, they only killed one person, Zachariah. And look what happened. His blood, over 100 years, was still seeing there. Who got with that person? What's my end going to be? Orak, he fled. Shada Putisa Lebes, he wrote a last will and testament, and he sent it to his family. These Gaia, and he converted. It's amazing who in the world accepted his conversion, especially in light of the next piece of Gemara. I don't know how he's able to convert, but the Muzada converted. We had a very similar story to Nero and Caesar in Gemara Gittin of Muzayim there, where he threw all the arrows in different directions. He was sent by the Romans, the second base of Mikdash, destroyed the base of Mikdash, and eventually he was Megayer as well. But Muzada was much worse. He killed 940,000 people. He destroyed the base of Mikdash. He did everything, and only afterwards he decided to do Torah Rabbanan. In fact, I was just now in Los Angeles and met my friend of mine who has a Chabad house there in Bel Air, and he tells me that he has a number of girls who are going through conversion in a serious way, and they all came only after October 7th. After they saw what happened October 7th, they decided that they want to join the Jewish people in the suffering. But Adam was much worse. He's the one who actually perpetrated all these crimes, and then he felt bad. So what have we learned? Naaman Ger Toshev. Naaman was a Ger Toshev. What's the definition of Ger Toshev? We already had in the Gemara Machlekes Tanoim, whether a mayor says as long as they don't worship idols, they could be a Ger. They're allowed to live in Eretz Yisrael. According to the Chachamim, they have to accept all 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, they have to accept all the mitzvahs except the laws of Treifus. And Rashi here says that he just doesn't do Avodah Zarah. Rashi said many times, and everybody wonders why Rashi would rule like Rab Meir. The Rambam rules like the Chachamim, 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. And the answer that Rashi learns that that Gemara there is talking about the mitzvah that you have to support them. That mitzvah of supporting them is only if it's a proper Ger Toshev, except the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. But all other dinim of Ger Toshev, the live in Eretz Yisrael, all the other dinim, even if they just denounce Avodah Zarah, that's good enough. So Naaman was a Ger Toshev. Nivuzradon Ger Tzedekah. He was a complete Ger, totally accepted. The children of Sisera, Lamdu Torah b'Yerushalayim. They learned Torah in Yerushalayim. Who were the grandchildren of Sisera? Rabbeinu Nissim in Masechta Bracha says, when the Gemara says, Akiva, when they impeached Rabbi Gamliel, and they were searching to who can replace him, they said Rabbi Akiva, naturally, but then they came back, he has no yichus. And Rabbi Nissim says, and he quotes our Gemara here, which means that was his version of our Gemara, that it was Rabbi Akiva. And it says, Lamdu Torah b'Yerushalayim. He didn't teach Torah in Yerushalayim, he learned in Yerushalayim, because Rabbi Akiva's home was Bnei Brak. The Bnei Banav Shel Sanhedrin, and Sanhedrin's grandchildren, Limdu Torah b'Rab. They taught Torah b'Rab. And who were they? Who were they? Shmai Bavtalion. Shmai Bavtalion, who was the Nasi and the Av Bezin. It is a question because the halacha is that when you have a ruler, it can only be someone whose mother is a Yid and the father is a Yid, and we just said they were Gerim. So the Rashbats already answers that we're talking about over here. There was nobody equal to them at all. The Bnei Banav Shel Haman, from the grandchildren of Haman, Lamdu Torah b'Bnei Brak. In Bnei Brak, that's where the grandchildren of Haman ended up. Now that's a big question in Halach everybody discusses, because it says, as it says in other places, that you do not accept any converts from from Haman. How in the world do we have converts from Haman? So one answer is that they were not directly son after son. They came from the daughter of Haman, and that law that you cannot accept any gator from Haman was only if it's a direct lineage through a paternal lineage, not maternal. That's one of the answers given. Actually, Balaturim in Parshat Tetzaveh, his version is not Haman but Naaman. The Naaman's grandchildren learned Torah b'nei Brak. And then the grandchildren of Nebuchadnezzar, the Eibishter wanted to invite them to join the fold under the wings of the Shechina. They want to destroy the base and destroy the Hechel. You're going to allow the children to become and join the Jewish fold. How can you do that? Why should he have any schusim at all? And this is what it says. Hashem wanted to accept his children, the grandchildren, to become Jewish and convert, and the Malachim put a stop to it. They said it's not fair. Why should he have any merit at all that his grandson should be a Yid? Hainu d'chsiv. This is what it says in Pasuk. Rafina's bubble v'lo nipasa. That he wanted to cure a bubble, but he was not cured. Now, very odd. Nevuzradon, who did the actual destroying of the base of Mikdash, and Nevuzradon who killed so many, butchered so many, he became a Ger Tzedek, we just learned. Nebuchadnezzar wasn't even there. Nebuchadnezzar wasn't even there. He's the one that we say, no way in the world would he even allow his grandchildren to become Jewish. It's apparent from here that the initiator is worse than the one who actually brings it into reality. But Nebuchadnezzar is punished worse than Nebuzaradan. Ula says Nebuchadnezzar. Ula says is referring to Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar itself. That's what we're talking about. This pasuk. We don't want him to have any good, any healing. None of his grandchildren. The Shalah HaKadosh writes in Masechta Shavuos that the Kel Moli Rachmim that we all say today, anywhere we go, you say Kel Moli Rachmim, and it says there Tachas Kanfei Ashchina, that this person should be accepted under the Shechina, is wrong, and in fact he uses the words Toiv Shtikosam Midiburim. It's better you don't say the whole Kel Moli than to say that, and he says that a ger is Tachas Kanfei Shechina, and a person born as a Yid, the right word is Al Kamfei Shechina. It's two different places. And when you say to a person who died, Tachas Kamfei Shechina, who are you talking to? If this person is not a convert, you're not talking to him. So why are you saying it? Why are you saying Hashem's name? And he said it's all wrong. And he comes up very, very strongly against it, which is very interesting. Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmani Amar. Shmuel Nachmani says, not Toman Netzaro. No, the pasuk is talking about. It's talking about Eleanor's bubble, the rivers of bubble. The rivers of bubble are terrible, they're putrid, and therefore the the bubble, the date palm trees of bubble are bad because they get irrigated by the water from these rivers and the terrible water. Amar Ula says, that will describe exactly what happened. How did Nebuchadnezzar get involved? So he says, there were terrible neighbors when they heard, Ammon and Moab heard that the Nevi'im were prophesying that the Beis Mikdash will eventually be destroyed. They sent a letter to Nebuchadnezzar. They said, Puk v'ta, come. Amar, he said, and come and attack Yerushalayim. He said, Mistavina, I'm scared. I don't want them to do to me what they did to Sanhedrin because I was there. I was a survivor. I don't go through the whole thing again. Shochel said, the Ish is no longer there in this house. Who's this Ish? So he says here, he went far away. We already had it before the Gemara. Ish is also referring to Hashem. She never said Hashem Ish Muhammad. Hashem is no longer there protecting the Yidden. Maybe he's not there, but he's close to there. Well, see, he can come straight away. Hashem moved far, far away. He's not interested anymore in Beis Hamikdash. That is in Yerushalayim. He said back to them, even though most Eden, let's say, are Rishayim, but Isul Tzaddik, the Boy Rachme, but you have Tzaddikim who will daven to Hashem, and they're going to bring Hashem back. He said, no, that all the tzaddikim, the bundle of money he took with him, there's no money left. Who is this money? Who is this kesef? And kesef tzaddikim. Kesef is a metaphor for tzaddikim. Shenemar, it says, the ekra I bought, the chamisha osir, on the 15th day, kesef. He said, I bought on the 15th day, kesef. No, it was the 15th day of Nisan. I redeemed them. I took the kesef, the chayim sa'olim, the lasach sa'olim. That in the schus of tzaddikim, which are known as kesef, I took chayim sa'olim is 30 saw, and lasach is 15 saw. It's a total of 45. When you're learning Marachulin, there's a total of 45 tzaddikim. A 30 saw and a 15 saw, 45 tzaddikim that protect the entire world. Sometimes the 30 on Israel and 15 on Chutz La'aretz. Sometimes in history, the 30 were in Chutz La'aretz and the 15 were in Israel. There were always Eden left in Israel. There's never a time there was no Eden left at all in Israel. And therefore we see kesef referring to as a metaphor for tzaddikim. Shalach Lu, he said back, okay, but how did the Sheba tshuva? The Rishayim, okay, maybe there's no tzaddikim left, but the Rishayim, why can't they do tshuva? Look what happened to the other people do tshuva. Uboy Rachmel, I'll daven to Hashem, U'may I'll bring Hashem back. So he said to him, it's too late. Hashem already fixed the time that he's not going to take them out for another 70 years because they're going to go 70 years in Golos bubble. Don't worry. She never said, don't fret. And the designated time, he's coming back. And how do we know Yom HaKesed means? Ain't Kesed Lazman means a fixed time. She never says, by Kesed Yom Chagenu. We know when it comes to Shofar, a fixed time. He said to them, it was Teva's time. This is the depth of winter. Well, I can't protect myself from the snow and from the rain. He said to him, you go between the mountaintops. I'm going to protect you from the rain and the howling winds and the snow. Shenema, as it says in Pasuk, it says, Shilchu Kar Moishel Eretz, that he says he will send you the Moishel Eretz. He sent to the Moishel Eretz, which is Nebuchadnezzar. Misela Midbola Har Batsin, like when you go for your place through the Har Batsin, go through the mountain, and they'll protect you. Shalach, he said, but if I arrive to Yerushalayim, where am I going to keep all my soldiers to protect them? In the thick of winter. He said, you know, they have these tunnels and these caves, and they're nicer. They take better care of them than, you know, these caves were meant for graves. They treat them nicer than your palaces. The Chesiv says basically in that day, Hashem says, I'll remove all the bones from Yehuda and all the bones from the ministers, from the Yerushalayim, all those Yerushalayim, and V'shatchel Hashem is spread them out there for the sun and the moon, l'chol tzor shemayim for the stars, Asher Evim that they loved, V'asher Avodim that they served, Asher Hochachrem they served all these idols. I'll take all these people out, and you'll have all these caves, which is what they did, and that's where you can hide or where you can protect yourself. Did you hear when is Mashiach coming? And he referred to his Mashiach as Bar Nafli. Man Bar Nafli. First, he didn't understand what he's talking about. Why are you referring to who is this Bar Nafli? Mashiach. I'm referring to Mashiach. And Mashiach Bar Nafli. Why are you calling Mashiach Bar Nafli? As if Nafli is those who are fallen. You're calling the son of those who are fallen? Yes, the Chesiv, it says by Yemim on that day, remember, Mashiach is the son of David, and David is called Sukkah, the Sukkah of David that fell down, and we're going to lift it up, and we are going to fix it up. So therefore, I'm calling it Bar Nafli. It says in one of the Mefarshim very nice that David HaMelech himself was supposed to be stillborn. And remember, he either received 70 years from Adam Arishon, that's why Adam lived 930 years, not 1,000 years. Others say he got a number of years from different people, and therefore he's called Bar Nafli, the son of a nafel of a stillborn baby, because that's what David HaMelech should have been. The generation that Mashiach will come, just like a few more lines, the Talmid Chachamim are reducing in size, and the rest of the people are going to sit there and yearn, be yoga, and they're going to be distressed, and they're going to crash and moan. They'll have so many different problems and decrees against them. Before the first one finally gets cleansed out, another one happens. So that is what's going to happen. Okay, we'll stop over here for the next 2 weeks.